Now let's go back to something on a more general level. This car is all about having fun. Now I know that seems really obvious, but by today's standards, this car is neither fast nor powerful, but yet it's still so much fun. For context, pretty much all the cars that were in the group I drove with just happened to be either modern European supercars or modern luxury performance sedans. And this car is pretty much bone stock, except for the cup holder. So let's just say for most of the drive, I could hear the cars in front of me and the cars behind me a lot more clearly than I could hear myself. Just because their engines are, they have much more powerful engines and much beefier exhaust notes. And while I had no trouble keeping up with the rest of the cars, there's no doubt those cars kept pace with a lot less effort, just because they're that much more advanced. But modern cars can make older cars like this seem slow and outdated, but they can't take away the fun factor. And that's what attracts a lot of people to older cars. Older cars like this, not even just sports cars, but cars in general, you're just so much more connected to the whole driving experience than you would be with a lot of newer cars. And when it comes to the C4 Corvette, whether it's the Targa top or just the view of the long sleek hood in front of you, or the video game-like digital speedometer, or just the way the car handles and performs in general, there's just so much fun to be had. And that's really what this car is all about. Now that leads me to the next thing I want to say. And this is something I've known about all along, but really didn't think it would get to a point where I would actually be saying this. But it'd be nice if this car came with a manual transmission. Now don't get me wrong, I love this automatic. I knew all along when I got the car that it was an auto and I had no problem with it, and I still really enjoy it. It's got, and it pairs really well with this engine. It's got a lot of torque, the power is really easily accessible, and a lot of professional reviewers have really praised this car's automatic transmission as well. Now I've enjoyed driving stick shift cars before, but I'm not one of those guys that's so used to rowing my own gears that I can't have it any other way. And you gotta remember, back in the 80s and 90s, automatic transmissions were seen as more of a luxury and more of a premium feature, and enthusiasts weren't nearly as obsessed with manuals as they are today. So even though the C4 Corvette was meant to be a true performance car, the majority of them were actually equipped with autos. And I've actually met people shopping for a C4 right now that specifically want the automatic over the manual just because it pairs so well with this engine. And I personally, again, I have no problem with this automatic. I really like it. For just casual driving, for just having a good time and having fun, and just feeling good, this transmission is wonderful. And it definitely delivers enough power for a car that looks this sleek. And to be honest, 90% of the time, that's probably how this car is going to get used anyway. So I have no problem with the car having an automatic. I really enjoy it. It's just that on the occasion when I do take it out on a twisty mountain road, where the car's greatest strength is its fun factor, being able to roll my own gears would really even further enhance that fun. And now for the last thing. I'm really happy and really impressed at how well this car held together throughout the drive. Especially given that pretty much all of the other cars around me were in a whole different league. I'm honestly a little bit surprised that there was no smoke coming out of my engine, there's no fluids leaking out the bottom, and no warning lights flashing everywhere like a Christmas tree. And I know this car was just thoroughly inspected and fixed up in March, so it's not like I was expecting anything catastrophic. But the fact is, even the best mechanics in the world are not magicians, and sometimes you can't foresee problems without going through some real-world testing. And you gotta remember, this car is 31 years old. It had sat pretty much abandoned for more than half a decade. And before that, the owner only drove it casually a handful of times. And the car was only passed to her because the previous owner was getting older and was having some health complications. So it's safe to say this Corvette has not been driven hard in at least 7 or 8 years, and almost certainly much longer than that. So that definitely increases the chances for some potential disaster. But the only problem I encountered on the drive really was this creaking sound that was coming out the back. But I'm not surprised by that, because the trunk is full of a plastic lining that's cracked from old age, so it probably has to do with that. I don't think it's anything serious. But other than that, the car ran perfectly smoothly. It was totally reliable. Pretty much ran good as new. And I didn't have any problems. And to be honest, I'm almost certain there's a lot more room for the car to be pushed much harder than I did this time around. Well, that's everything I have to say, and I'm definitely itching to go out for a drive. But before I go, I just want to say one more thing. I know I always shamelessly say that I think this car looks sexy, but when you take it out on a scenic mountain road, that just elevates the sexy to a whole new level. Here, let me just put up a picture from the drive. This car, I parked it next to a freaking Aston Martin. And there's also a Jaguar and a Porsche and an AMG and a bunch of other fancy cars in the background. And I'm just really impressed at how well this peasant of a Corvette can hold its own. Several people in the group actually complimented the car as well, and I noticed some of the people taking pictures of the cars in the group really didn't treat this Corvette any differently than they did all the fancy exotics that are worth literally 10 to 20 times more than this car. This Corvette is definitely not the fastest or the loudest or the newest or the most expensive or the most powerful or the most advanced or anything like that. But it's definitely a lot of fun, and it's definitely something special. And I'm just so glad and so thankful to be able to have it right here in my garage.